look into the history of New Mexico, you start going, wait a second, Dulce? Epstein chose that place, or was he told to go there and given this? The ranch is like 55,000 square feet. That's just the ranch. That's not the property. The property is huge. It's literally like Booneyville. So what were they doing there? Well, he had all kinds of scientists coming there. Wasn't just torturing and raping children. They were doing some eugenics. And this is what I'm talking about. The fallen angels have been doing that here for thousands of years. It's one of the reasons God wiped it out once prior to us being put here. And then he wiped it out again because the gene pool was so badly polluted. And it's going to get ugly. It's going to get worse before it gets better. There's until this is over, until this is finally concluded, this conflict, we're just going to continue to be living in a web of lies and suffering. And it's not personal. Here's the other thing I learned. So there's rules, especially just like we know when you drive a car, right? If there was no rules, it would be even worse. The traffic would be, well, I guess it's kind of like that in India. But without the rules, society falls apart because logistically people have to agree to certain things. Yes, you can break the rules, but there's consequences for it, and that's all I'm trying to say.
Right.
I realize that, and most of us have to learn the hard way. You can't get away with this kind of stuff. I think I also told you too, from my perspective, one of the things that people who are Luciferian or satanic is that they say God, they agree with Lucifer that God's a liar. He didn't really give us free will, because in their concept of free will is, we should be free to do whatever we want, whenever we want, wherever we want. Then that's called anarchy. That means no rules, and that's impossible.
Yeah. That's more idealistic than based on actual reality.
Yeah, but we know what happens if you do that. Things fall apart when you're dealing with billions of people. And more importantly, look, we're not alone. We've never been alone. We don't even know how many planets are in this, for sure, in this universe. But they're not just experimenting here. There was a context for all of this that has been lost because of, like I said, these warfare. And the criminal activity is just off the charts. And there's consequences for that I hesitate to even mention, because this is the other thing that floored me. A lot of people who claim to be religious or really are living what they call a religious life, they have like blinders on. They do not accept that God is supernatural and can do and does things that are supernatural. And more importantly, just like Lucifer said when he appealed, he said, you're not a loving God. If you're going to punish me like that eternally, that's no loving God would do that. And so a lot of people in churches, various denominations, they say there is no hell. God's a loving God. He wouldn't do that. And to me, that's just pure ignorance.
Right. Especially when you read the Bible, it doesn't really exactly feel like that's a loving God.
Well,
especially all the things all the killing that goes on.
Well, okay. So the reason that God told them to go into Canaan and kill everyone is because those were Nephilim. The Anakim are Nephilim, all right, and so were the Amalekites and the Amorites and all the Raphaim and all of those guys, and gals were. I mean, so when Moses, this is one of the reasons they had to so-called wander for 40 years. They couldn't just go there, and when they did, Moses was already dead. But when the rest of the group got there and they sent some spies to check on that land, they came back and go, we can't go in there. We look like grasshoppers compared to the people that live there. So larger than Goliath. He was just kind of like the tail end of it. But So they're still among us, and I don't mean giants in stature, but they certainly have abilities that's beyond us, because
south of Saxony.
their whole hierarchy and technology was originally came from heaven. Now, I don't mean in this universe. They came from a higher realm that was closer to God, but they turned away. They turned away and they fell, and ultimately they lost. Every battle that they fought, they lost throughout this universe, and ultimately those who are left were imprisoned here. So it's I know it's hard for us to conceive of all this stuff, and that's probably why a lot of things are left out. Because, well, I mean, first of all, some of the prophets in the past, when they were shown things like technology, they didn't know what electricity was, or television, or anything like that, let alone a computer. But those things all existed. They've existed for maybe forever. I don't know. But God's pretty smart. And obviously, if we're created in His image, we're doing things much like He would do. Just like using this technology right now to have this conversation, 3,000 miles or more apart, and then sharing it with everybody on the planet. So you can imagine that the level of technology and communication and intelligence coming from the angelic realm and from God is very difficult to comprehend in our current state, let alone when a couple thousand years ago, when most people, and even to this day, still not everybody's illiterate on it. I mean, not everyone is literate on this planet. So sure, you can tell somebody something, but unless you explain it to them and show it to them, it's probably not going to make much sense.
Right. It won't exactly click for them.
No. So, and that's another reason why the Bible is incomplete, because, it was good enough at the time. I find it very frustrating. I'm almost done with reading the New Testament. And then my pastor told me, you start with the New Testament, then go to the Old Testament and just keep reading through again. He says, just read a little bit every day. And eventually this Old English, the way it was translated from Hebrew or Aramaic to Greek, and then ultimately to English, etc. Old English is terrible, in my opinion. As a communicator in modern English, this is frustrating, very frustrating. But I'm starting to understand it is almost like a different language, but you got to learn.
Right, and yes, we didn't even include all the New and Old Testaments where God is killing all kinds of people left and right. So yes.
Well, he's instructing this because, again, it's not just wrath or vengeance. It's part of this ongoing war in heaven. And here's the other thing, because Israel's been in the news a lot, aren't they always? But especially this thing with Iran, not always for good reasons. They recently were prepping for the red heifer ceremonies to allegedly bring back the Temple of Solomon and usher in what they consider to be their Messiah.
Correct.
And so they not all of them are going down this path. But again, just like Judas betraying Jesus, this is a turning away. This is a rejection of God, what they're doing. What they're committed to. Those who are, it's sort of like the Pharisees that are still around, and they're living this alternative reality, which to me it is satanic, meaning adversarial towards God.
So you don't agree with what they're doing right now?
Well,
the state of Israel.
It's not. It doesn't matter what I think.
Yeah, but I'm asking you, what do you think of that? By the way, the fact that they are slaughtering a lot of people, even innocent people as well.
Yeah. That's sure. That's obviously that's called human sacrifice, and that's something else that they were engaging in too. Even when Moses went up on the mountain there with God for 40 days, or at least it seemed like it. I mean, that's what people said. I don't think I'm pretty sure it did. Maybe felt like 4 days or less for him. But bottom line is, they are they're being used by the dark side to usher